Right now we are sitting in Richmond, Virginia, capital of the former Confederacy, and we're sitting right now on the grave of the only president of the Confederacy, Mr. Jefferson Davis. And sitting next to me is a proud daughter of the Confederacy, born and bred in the South, North Carolina. She is a Southern belle. Can you introduce yourself for us?
Hi, I'm Sam.
So where do you live right now, Sam?
Raleigh, North Carolina.
And tell us about Raleigh, North Carolina.
Well, Raleigh is the capital. It's not the largest city in North Carolina, but it has a lot of history. Not quite as much as Richmond, but it's a pretty small town. It's become a lot more popular, a lot more liberal. Everybody jokes that it's a relocation area for Yanks.
Oh.
So it's a little different from the rest of North Carolina, which is very good old South.
Uh-huh. And you are, not a Yank in fact, but you are a Yank in spirit, right?
Somewhat, yes.
I mean, you don't have, your
No
accent is
accent.
neutral. You have lots of hipster, liberal views.
Yes.
So do you ever feel out of place in Raleigh?
No, Raleigh is very liberal.
Mm-hmm.
My political views are pretty standard for someone who lives in the city. It's very socially conservative, though.
Uh-huh.
Very Southern mindset. Get married early. Family is very important. Faith is very important. Be polite. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Yeah. Do you say sir and ma'am?
No, I wasn't brought up that way. But I notice that it's strange that I don't, because most other people do.
Mm-hmm. What do you do in Raleigh?
I'm a teacher.
A teacher of who?
4th grade.
Tell us about your 4th graders.
So I teach at a Title I school in Garner, which is just to the south of Raleigh.
What is Title I?
So I have a large percentage of my students are free and reduced lunch, so low-income students. Very diverse population. And because it's in Garner and not in Raleigh, a lot of them come from more traditional Southern backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. So 4th grade, you teach everything.
Yeah.
They're with you the whole day.
Yeah, the whole day except for lunch and specials.
What's your favorite subject and what's your least favorite subject?
I don't know. I like all of them depending on the day. Math is the least exciting. And
yeah, it's okay. We all hate math. You can admit it.
Well, it can be fun, but my group this year, for whatever reason, struggles more with math than they do with reading. And so it's more of a struggle. So it's my least favorite to teach this year.
Would you like to tell us one of the answers that your students gave on a math question?
So we work a lot on reading the directions and reading the question and following directions, which can be difficult for 9 and 10-year-olds to do. So one of the math questions was about money. James had money that he spent on a game. He spent $20 on a game, and he spent 1/4 of his money on this game.
So he had 20 Confederate dollars, and he spent 1/4 of it on the game.
He spent $20 on the game.
Uh-huh.
He spent 1/4 of his money on the game. So how much money did he start with? So, they had to work backwards and realize that 20 is 1/4 of 80.
Yes.
So he started with $80.
So the answer would be 80 Confederate dollars.
So the 80 would be $80 would be the answer. And I had a student and I tried to point it out, and she was very insistent that she had answered the question. And her answer was no.
Just no.
Just no. How much money did he have left? Or how much money did he start with? And the answer was no.
So what was your journey to become a teacher?
I actually went to business school first at NYU. And I finished my degree 4 years and realized it wasn't for me. So I moved back to Raleigh and went to graduate school at NC State and got my teaching degree.
Okay. And at NC State. Mm-hmm. Where is NC State?
In Raleigh.
Oh, in Raleigh. Is that a good school?
It's a reasonably good school.
Okay. Tell us about Stern. Tell us about the people, what the atmosphere is like. It's right there in the heart of the city.
Very diverse. A lot of foreign students. A lot of students from Asia or from Asian backgrounds. More male-dominated than most colleges. Very hyper-competitive. very moneyed.
Hmm. So tell us some funny stories about these students.
I don't really have any funny stories.
Oh, come
No, I
on.
don't know.
None?
None.
What was, so what part of New York is it in? Tell us about the area of New York that it's in, the vibe, the spirit.
So the main part of campus is in Greenwich Village, which is right on, well, near Greenwich Village. It's like Greenwich Village, and the East Village is right there. Washington Square Park was like our quad.
Mm-hmm.
Not the nicest park. You know, homeless people and, you know, blowjobs on benches and things like that. Drug dealers.
Oh my.
But
Did you ever participate in that?
No.
For 80 Confederate dollars?
No. But I mean, I had a fountain, and during lunch breaks, people would go hang out in Washington Square Park.
Mm-hmm.
And it's where the movie I Am Legend is shot with Will Smith. Yep, that's Washington Square Park. I passed that when I lived. My first dorm was on Fifth Avenue, and when I walked to class, I passed by that building every day.
So the South is a very religious place. They call it the Bible Belt.
Yes.
Are you religious in any way?
I grew up with kind of hippie parents, not religious. I didn't go to church unless I went every now and then with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And so I grew up atheist because we never really talked about religion. I have family that's very, very Christian.
Mm-hmm.
I have family that's very, very Jewish. And as I got older, it's hard because there's a lot of people that I've never talked about religion with, and they would automatically assume that I'm Christian because that's kind of the default setting in the South.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's people that would probably be a little horrified if they found out I didn't believe in God. Families I've known for years and years that, like, I dread the day they ask me about it and I have to fess up to the fact that no, I'm not Christian.
Well, let's hope nobody in the great state of North Carolina watches this.
But it's always been an interesting thing because so many people identify so strongly with their faith. So it wasn't until not that long ago that I started kind of digging into mine and trying to figure out what I would identify as.
So what do you, to use your word, identify as?
So I would identify as Buddhist. It's
Mm-hmm.
non-theistic. It's more of a worldview and a view of people and the relationships between people and how they should be.
So right now, I'm sure that many members of our audience are groaning and rolling their eyes and going, here's another white lady in her late 20s living in the city who's decided she's a Buddhist. So defend your position.
I started reading about it. And the more I read about it, the more I related to it, and the more I felt like it captured my thoughts on things, and even things that I had trouble putting into words, like experiences and feelings and beliefs about things that I hadn't been able to express to other people were expressed by these people who had written about Buddhism and researched Buddhism.
Mm-hmm. What does Buddhism mean to you? What are the tenets of your faith?
Compassion, acknowledging that throughout the world everyone is suffering in their own way, and in the end we're all connected, so your job is to do what you can to alleviate the suffering of others and alleviate your own through awareness of what is your suffering and what it comes from.
Mm-hmm. So how long has your family been in the United States?
Oof, a long time.
Long time.
My great something grandfather was the governor of North Carolina, Charles B. Aycock.
How do you know what year that was?
Late 1800s, early 1900s. He was
Mm-hmm.
the education governor, so he is well known throughout the state for founding hundreds of schools.
Mm.
And there's been actually a ton of controversy recently, and his name has been removed from buildings and things like that because he was also racist.
Mm-hmm. So who
But,
could go to those hundreds of schools that he founded?
White kids.
And only white kids, right?
But I mean, most major universities in the state of North Carolina, there's dorms named after him, there's schools named after him, buildings named after him, statues,
Mm-hmm.
streets. Even in Raleigh, there's streets
But
named after him.
is there now a progressive movement to get his name
Removed
from these
for
dorms,
being
from these
racist.
schools? Yeah.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you legitimately are a daughter, I don't know if you're proud or not, of the Confederacy. So right now we're kind of on Confederate hallowed ground. We're literally at where Jefferson Davis and his wife are buried. Very beautiful. There's downtown Richmond right over there, beautiful river next to us. So what do you feel? I mean, we're surrounded by like wreaths and Confederate flags. I mean, it's still very well upkept. People are visiting, as you have seen. Actually, there was a couple family like walking around behind
I
us.
know.
That was a little awkward. So how do you feel being here in this place?
I mean, it's cool. It's a cool piece of history. History is important.
Mm-hmm.
Try to teach my kids that you learn from history, you learn from the mistakes. Hopefully, history we don't ever have to repeat.
Mm-hmm. So I was in New Orleans, which is a city that you told me that you want to move to.
Yes.
And I was staying in a hostel just a few blocks south of, I believe it was called Jefferson Davis Road, and there was a big statue of Jefferson Davis, and they had just removed it a few weeks prior to my arrival there. And New Orleans is actually going through the process of removing all of their Confederate statues. So what do you think of that? Do you agree with the people of New Orleans in that decision, or do you disagree?
I don't know. I mean, I understand that it can cause, I don't know, unpleasant reactions, especially among people who came from backgrounds that involved slavery, but that's an important part of history. I mean, if you can acknowledge that, yes, that was not a good time in our history, what's the problem with acknowledging that it's history and respecting the history of it?
So the statue, in your opinion, should have been left up.
I would have voted to leave it up if I had been given a vote.
All right. So you went to NYU Stern School of Business, and then you become like a teacher,
Yes.
like an elementary school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
What's up with that? What's that? You're doing this like you're in this degree with all these sharks. You know, they want to go and work for Wall Street,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Rule the world.
and then suddenly you're in Raleigh,
Yeah.
teaching fourth graders.
Mm-hmm.
What changed in you? When did you see the light?
Probably my sophomore year, and I just stuck with it anyways. And then when I got out into the real world and it wasn't school anymore, and it was like, okay, this is really the rest of your life, I knew I couldn't stay.
Did you work any big girl business jobs before you switched over to teaching? Before you went to graduate school?
Well, I had an internship at a fashion PR firm for a while. And that was kind of like leading into it. And that was, the perks were enough to outweigh any of the negative sides of it. And then I worked for a marketing company that worked primarily with construction companies and subcontractors and helping with bids and things like that. And I hated every second of it.
So here's a unique aspect of American culture and modern American society. How much do you have in student loan debt, if you wouldn't mind telling everyone?
A lot.
Do you want to give a ballpark figure?
Like 150,000 plus.
$150,000 plus dollars. It's not Confederate dollars. That's not pesos. That is 150,000 US dollars, USD. So what do you think of the United States school system, where young people? I mean, how old were you when you graduated?
18. Or 18 when I graduated high school and made all the decisions, the financial decisions that impacted me.
But how old were you when you graduated? So you're 20. You're 18 when you decide I'm going to go to this fancy, expensive school, and you're 22 when you graduate with, around $150,000 in debt.
Not quite that much.
Wow.
Because I had to pay for grad school too.
Ah, okay. But still, 100,000 plus. So, what do you think of that system?
It's a broken system.
It's a broken system. And how would you fix it? If you were going to make the higher education system great again, what would you go about doing?
I mean, a complete overhaul where education is free is unlikely and a daunting task, and doesn't, as most people say, not in keeping with the American spirit of free enterprise. But I talked to someone from Australia who said that when they pay for college, it's a certain percentage of their income after they graduate. And for however long they work, they pay that certain percentage back to the school. And then if they never make enough money to pay back what they owe, then they don't pay back what they owe. It doesn't get foisted onto anybody else. That seems like a workable system.
I see. Who did you vote for in the last presidential election?
Hillary Clinton.
And if you could have voted for anyone,
Bernie Sanders.
all right. So you were feeling the burn,
Yes.
and you voted for Clinton because she's the one who ended up taking it. What do you think of Donald Trump?
I think it's a kind of terrifying turning point in history. Like everybody joked about it and then it was real. And now everybody's okay with it. It's kind of like that's how bad things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Is when like it becomes like this big issue and then it happens and people are like, oh, okay, well I guess that's it now.
When you're discussing Trump with your true North Carolina friends, and they're all aboard the Make America Great Again train,
No, but they're
what do you
not.
say to them?
I have friends that voted for Trump. I have friends who are extremely anti-Trump. I have friends that run the whole gamut from one to the other.
Okay, but the friends who did vote for Trump, do you discuss it with them?
Sometimes, and I understand the reasons why they say they voted for him. I understand why people voted for him.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think people voted for him?
Maybe something different. They're tired of politicians and crooked politics and lies and feeling like they get no say, and they just wanted a change, something different that would maybe benefit them.
Mm-hmm. So, to close, tell us about the people of North Carolina. What are the good things about North Carolinians, right? North Carolinians?
Yes, North Carolinians.
What are the good things about North Carolinians? What are the bad things about North Carolinians?
Well, North Carolina is the South. People are polite. Yes ma'am, no ma'am.
Except for you.
Except for me.
You're
no,
not polite.
I just don't say yes ma'am, no ma'am. It feels weird to me. But it's very, you don't get a true taste for what people are like. Like someone can be very nice and polite to you, and then it turns out they actually hate your guts, and you would never know because it's all about like surface level polite, and so it's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing.
So if you were tasked with making North Carolina great again, and you could change one thing, just one thing, what would it be?
Ooh, I don't know. I don't know what I would change. It's not any one thing. I mean, that's part of the culture of a place. I feel like if you change that, it wouldn't be the same. I would be sad that it wasn't, I don't know, the Raleigh I grew up with.
Come on, you gotta change one
I
thing.
don't know what I would change. I don't know. I really don't know.
Would you build more Bojangles?
No. Actually, you know what I would do? I would take Wake County Public Schools,
Okay.
and I would chop it up into smaller size pieces because Wake County Public Schools is this gigantic, like it's ridiculous how large the school system is.
It's not very manageable because of its size.
I think that impacts some of the problems we've had.
All right. Well, if you're watching Trump, split it up for us. All right. Well, live from Jefferson Davis Burial Ground here in beautiful Richmond, Virginia. Catch you guys next time.